All right.
Hey guys, this is the Sovereign Entrepreneur Podcast. Have a very special episode here per usual. I have Danny, my co-host, and then my buddy Billy Howell. Billy's based in Miami, but he's a fellow New Jersey guy, such as myself. He's a serial entrepreneur. I don't think he ever worked a real job, or a real job. Um, and he's kind of been a mentor to me throughout my entrepreneurial journey after I left private equity and went into the e-com space prior to doing B2B. So he's a veteran, and was kind of in e-com pretty early in the early 2010s when it was kind of the Wild West, and had a lot of success with various companies. So I'll defer to him, on the background he wants to give here. I guess maybe starting with kind of where you grew up and your hobbies and stuff, and then your first business. We could take it from there.
All right. What an introduction. Yeah, so my name is Billy. I grew up in New Jersey, pretty basic middle of New Jersey, suburban town. Wasn't really exposed to anything really crazy. And then, when I was 18, I was a freshman in college. I learned about drop shipping t-shirts from someone on Twitter. And, it started off as kind of just like something for fun to do. I think literally I'm a very competitive person. I think that's probably what drives me the most. And some kid on Twitter said he was making 10K a month selling these stupid t-shirts. And I was like, if this idiot is making 10K a month, like what could I make? And I just learned how to do Photoshop, designed like 200 shirts in like the course of a weekend. And I watched like one YouTube video that talked about putting keywords in the title, the product title, instead of just in the description and the tags. And I just loaded up the title. So I would put like party shirt, college shirt, rage, and every like keyword imaginable in the title, which made the titles look stupid. And then I woke up one day and I had like 100 orders because I was rooming with my roommate at the time. We had ranked number one on Google for the word party shirt. So whenever someone typed in party shirt, like our site was coming up. And we didn't even have a domain, by the way. That was the craziest part about this. I think we had like a .tk website. So like it was like a free like redirect essentially. And I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never met anyone doing online business. I was a freshman in college, running track, doing my thing. And at that point, right then and there, I was like, wait a second, this is what I'm doing. And I never looked back. I never cared about school anymore, never cared about an internship. Like that was the life-changing moment for me. But prior to that, I grew up in a town and in a family where like, become an accountant, come work in finance, do this, do that, like buy the book, go to college, get that internship, get that good job, work in New York City, whatever. And that's what all my friends ended up doing. But the second I found e-commerce and saw like what was possible, it was, what was it? Pandora's box, can't close it, right? Like I was like, this is my life, and no one could convince me otherwise. So I think that was for me the turning point in what would have probably been a long, boring career doing something I hated, if not for that.
Yeah. And at that period of time, I guess in general, like drop shipping businesses are great for cash flow, but it's one of those things where a product will hit for a month or two or like 5 months and then it'll completely evaporate, right? And so like that's why I guess those businesses don't have as much enterprise value, right? So like how was your experience? Like how long did that run for? And like I guess you made enough money such that you were able to seed your next business idea with that capital. Is that correct?
Yes, so that's one of the most interesting questions that I like to talk about with people. Like when you're 18 years old, you're a freshman in college for me at the time, and none of your friends are making money. Maybe they have a side job, maybe an internship, and you're making like sometimes $1,000 in a day. Like you're the guy. And I think like I didn't know anyone who was making a lot of money. And for me, like everyone was like hyping me up. Oh, I can't believe you're doing this. This is so crazy. And like honestly, I didn't really have a bar to like push towards. Like I think my biggest regret is I wish I had met someone who was doing more than me back then, who like, because I think I could have made a lot more looking back. Because this was 2011. I mean, things were crazy back then. It was wide open.
The
Nobody knew what
cost
they
per
were doing.
eyeball was just so low, right? On like all forms of ads.
But honestly, dude, like I didn't really care about scaling it. Like I was more than happy with what I was making. And it wasn't until I graduated college and I started to like meet some other people and like actually realize this had to be my full-time job now. Because in college, like my expenses were so low. Like I had way more money than I needed.
You got
And the
Rambo,
second I
right?
graduated, I was like, oh, like now I want more. Now I got to get an apartment. Now I got to get a car. Like at the time I'm living on campus, everything's paid for. I'm saving up tons and tons of money, right? And I don't really need more. I'm not like pushing. I'm not like, oh, I need 30K a month, 40K. Like it really, it didn't really exist in my head. And then as soon as I graduated, it's like it switched over, and I was like, wait a second, like I got to do more. And that was when it all changed for me. But yeah, I mean, in college, I was just kind of floating along, and it did die down, to your point. Over time, like it got more competitive. People started to realize, how this worked, and smarter people came into the game. Because in the beginning, it was like, who was I competing against? Like a bunch of random like incels on the internet, right? Like who's selling T-shirts online in 2011? Amazon. I didn't even know what Amazon was back then. Like e-commerce wasn't even a word. Like if you asked me what I was doing, I would call it print on demand T-shirt selling. Like I didn't use the word e-commerce. I didn't use drop shipping. Like those weren't even, for me at least, like buzzwords that existed, which is like weird looking back.
It's interesting. Did you like diversify out of just the like party shirts, or did you only sell that? What other products did you dive into?
So the funny story is we actually started with sports shirts. So we were selling like a Tebow time shirt. We had a Linsanity shirt. Do you remember like that? Like when that was all going crazy. And that's actually how we started ranking for keywords. We got those words down. Then we got a cease and desist from both of those people, and we realized that wasn't sustainable. And that was when we pivoted into the party shirt game quickly after that. But I remember like at the time, like putting a link on Yahoo Answers was like one of the best ways to drive traffic. Like you would just, like someone would search, where do I get the Tim Tebow time shirt or whatever like that? And we would just respond with our link, and it would rank, on the top of Google within like 24 hours. It was a totally different time. But yeah, we mostly, when I was in college, we just focused on party shirts and stuff that you'd wear to like Dayglow or a rave or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Did you end up finishing college?
Like I did, yeah.
Okay.
I did. I mean, like I didn't take it seriously. I never had an internship. I never really, it was kind of a waste, but I was on the track team, and I kind of just was like, you know what, I'll just keep my GPA high enough to finish it. And then as soon as I finished, I dove in full time to e-commerce and entrepreneurship.
Like where's the journey been since like day one of getting involved in e-commerce, the shirts, the party shirts, right? That was like day one. Where has it gone? Like take us through the timeline of like from then to where you are now.
Well, to Rob's point earlier, you start to learn really quick. I think when I graduated college, I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? I need to make more money more consistently, because that's to be my life, right? And, I tried to scale the shirt business, but it just really didn't work. So at the time, this is 2015 when I graduated, I was like obsessed with Instagram. For some reason, I saw that as being the most important platform. And I was like, I want to build pages with millions of followers on Instagram. I was like, that was my life. I would just make new pages every day, pick different niches. I had bots that would just follow and unfollow accounts all day. I would post myself every day. I was doing this all on my own, crazy looking back. And I built like a network of like probably 3, 4, maybe 5 million followers across like all of these pages. And, what I started to realize was I can sell ads to these companies. And this was my focus. I kind of went away from e-commerce for maybe 2 years, from 22 to 24. And I just focused on building Instagram pages. I partnered up with one of my friends who had a page with like 3 million followers or so. And I would just sell ads to these e-com brands. And then one day it clicked. I was like, these people are paying me like $200, $300 for a post, and they're buying every day. And I was like, if they keep coming back, they must be profiting. And I was like, I need to launch my own e-com brand and leverage my pages and then start buying from all these other pages, because I had become friends with all these meme page owners as well. And then in 2017, I started a backpack company. After testing tons of products, from, overseas, over in China, I found this charging backpack. It was basically just a normal backpack that had a USB port on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was one of those things like I saw the product and I knew right away it was it. And I tried to do a distribution deal with a company that was already established, and they wanted way too much per unit. So I just went to China, got it manufactured myself, took a risk. And I remember the first post. I remember I was dating this girl at the time who was still in college. I was in her dorm room, and I posted on Instagram like this photo. It was a static photo of a person wearing the backpack with the charging cord coming out of it. And we did like $2,000 in revenue off one post. And I was like, well, this is
Game
it.
on.
And then from there, it was just a fucking race to $1 million. I think we hit $1 million in revenue in under 2 months. And, that was my first lesson though, which was I didn't realize how seasonal backpacks were. I happened to launch the company right before the summer, and we killed it all summer. And then all of a sudden back to school ended and our sales just tanked. And that was like my first real wake up call. Like, okay, there's more to it than just rinse and repeat.
What do you think about starting a business solo versus with a partner?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I mean, I've had quite a few issues with partners over the years. I think the problem that I've had is I've always gone into partnerships with friends. I think that's natural though. Like, I mean, what am I going to do? Just go find someone on the street, like, hey, you want to start a business? Like, it's probably not going to work that way. So for me, it hasn't worked out in the past, and I'm about to try it again. So stay tuned. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm someone who is good at what I'm good at, and don't really like what I'm not good at. I like to try to like stay away from that. Like certain sides of the business, I just go, hey, it's not what I like to do. It's not what I'm good at, and I like to bring on a partner who is better at the other side.
Sure.
So for me, starting a business on my own, while I don't know, I mean, I've done like a small agency thing on my own and a couple little things, but for the most part, if I'm trying to do a full out brand build out, I don't think I would want to start it on my own. But with that being said, history would say that it doesn't work out.
Yeah, I'm kind of entirely in that camp, honestly. Like, I don't think I'd want to start a business with someone else other than like a podcast and a brand with Danny, for example, because like I think that makes a ton of sense. We both bring a lot to the table, but with Avenir and SovDoc, it's entirely me. And any future business I do, I think it'll be entirely me as well. And just relying on a team of international outsourced labor. I mean, owning 100% of the equity stack is pretty nice. There's a lot of brain damage associated with taking a business from 0 to 1, especially if you're by yourself and self-funded. But if you get through that 0 to 1 period and you own 100% of the equity stack, it's obviously you're teeing yourself up for a pretty nice outcome. So that's kind of where I am too.
I think your first hire is the most important thing.
Yeah.
If you bring on the right hire early on, I think it starts to feel like a community. But like being out on the water on your own, completely on your own, if that first hire comes in and they're flaky and they end up leaving and you're really on your own. I mean, it's hard, especially when you're young. It's hard to just, take it on the chin. Like if something fails, like it's on you and there's no one else to hide behind, right? Like it's all
I kind of
you.
like that dynamic though. It's like,
I think it is great, but it's hard. It's hard. Like I'm not going to sit here and say like, I wish I started some of my business on my own? Yes. Do I think I was ready to? Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably.
One of my friends asked me, like, if you had one sentence to give a new entrepreneur, what would it be? And I just said, like, burn the bridges behind you. Like, it's one of those things where, I mean, it's like, I don't know, I think it's like from the Iliad and the Odyssey, right? And it's like they went to war and they just burned the ships, right, behind them. And there's like no alternative. Like, if you don't win, you're completely fucked. And I kind of like that idea with an entrepreneur, like act as if you have nothing to lose and act as if like it's existential. And yeah, no, I think that makes a ton of sense, dude.
Yeah, no, so it's funny. So there was a moment I was out to dinner with this guy who produces like commercials for like the As Seen on TV infomercials, and we were working together on something. He wanted to go online and work on some things. So we had a meeting. We had been at his office all day and we went to grab dinner and we were talking. He was just asking me a couple of questions and I was kind of telling him about my background. And I was like, my brother right now is about to go to law school and I've always pushed him to like work hard in school. And he's like, oh, like why? Because like you didn't do that. And I was like, I don't know. I just feel like, having that ability to just, fall back on your degree is nice. And I just wanted to see him, do that. So that way he always had that option, even if he did choose to go in entrepreneurship. And then I remember he looked at me and he had said this. And at the time it was like so profound, but he was like, basically, he's like, I think if you had gone to a top school and focused on school, he's like, I don't think you would have built what you did. And I was like, it's an interesting point because, there was something about me never focusing on school, never getting an internship, never going down that path where like I had no choice but to make it an ecom. Like once I made that decision, like if I had left and had to go get a job, like where would I have worked? What would I have been making? Like next to nothing. No connections. I had no job. I had no experience. I'm 24 years old, just kind of like starting from scratch at that point. So like, failing never really was an option. And there were moments. I mean, after that first year with the backpacks, when we went from making 300, 400K a month revenue down to, maybe 30, 40K revenue because the back to school ended, it was like, okay, well now next month, we're not going to really take a paycheck, right? Like, what are we going to do? And it took probably until March or April of the next year to get going again with a new product. And I mean, and there were ups and downs like that throughout my life, you know, where you have the best year of your life followed by one where you barely make any money.
Yeah.
And, you know, you just wake up and you just go, I'm going to figure it out. And there was no plan B. I never in my head had a plan B. And I think looking back, that probably is the only reason that I was able to do it.
Yeah, I think like the strength of the safety net, if it's not that strong, it's like you need to be pretty careful and you need to push pretty hard. I think like almost the inverse was true for me, which made it so difficult to leave my job because like I was working in investment banking, like, you know, made over 150K my first year out of college, right? And then like private equity made like 300K when I was 24, 25. And so like you get into this like very cushy like golden handcuffs existence where like if you just stay in there for 10 years, like you know you're gonna get to 8 figures at some point. And so like I have a lot of friends that are just like in that right now, and it's really tough for them to extract themselves from that process and pursue entrepreneurship. But I'm glad I did, dude. And like the thing is, it's pretty funny, like I would be wealthier right now if I had stayed in private equity, but I know for a fact in 5 years that will not be the case. And like I'm just my quality of life is just so much better just because I have complete freedom over my schedule. And that's kind of like my highest value and highest ideal. And I'm sure probably the same is true for you. Just double clicking on one thing you said about like the criticality of the first hire, like just a quick anecdote on SovDoc, and even Avenir was true as well. But even on SovDoc, my latest company, like I just stumbled into finding a guy named Suleiman, who's my chief of staff, and he's a Saudi Arabian medical school student in his early 20s. And he came in as a graphic designer. And very quickly, I was like, dude, this kid is extremely smart and capable and hungry. And I just gave him some rope and gave him some autonomy. And now, like, my entire operational layer of the company, and largely every single one of like the 10 to 15 international outsourced employees I have, are all through him. And he's kind of like managing, like everyone's reporting to him and he's reporting to me. And I think it's just like such a success story and like that first hire. So like I would definitely like underscore your point, how important it is, and like how important it is to make that right decision at the beginning.
Yeah, that's huge. You found someone like that. And especially like you said, the hiring process, like bringing on those next people too, like for him to be able to help you with that, take so much off your plate.
It's all, there's 5 Saudi med school students that are running the organization. It's unbelievable, man. It's just like the leverage, the human capital leverage. Like people think about leverage as like debt, but there's also human capital leverage as well. Like you have these like really smart kids and you don't need to give them that much direction. Basically, I just tell all of them, like, I don't want to be in front of my laptop working. I want to be on calls and in meetings all day. And like, it took us a month to get there, but now I'm like 99% there, other than like filming podcasts like this. And it's like, I mean, I'll be fully transparent, like for like 8 to 10K a month for all those guys, plus my social media manager, my video editor, all that labor, I get to do like, I get to just take calls and meetings, which is the highest and best use of my time. So it's like, I could pay myself 10K a month and I have to do all that bullshit, or I could pay these, like this team of highly capable kids to do that. And I get just to focus on, you know, closing doctors, which is definitely like going to be the most profitable in the long run.
Yeah. And
oh, sorry, I'll let you go.
No, that's fine. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, I was just going to say, like, even what you just said there, have your jump from PE to what you started here. I think like your ability to spend money in the beginning, the way you do, is so important. I meet so many entrepreneurs, especially when I had the agency for a little bit, who would come to me and they'd be like, hey, what's it going to take to start this? And I would tell them truthfully what I thought it would take. And, you know, they're like 10K a month, like, oh, I can't do that. And it's like, number one, like if you view it as like an expense, I always viewed it as an investment. I'm investing 10K a month in my business. And these other people, they view it as an expense. And I almost know after that first meeting, they're not going to make it. I hate to say it, but the fact that you're doing that. So, and I've always known that about you since the first time we spoke. You know, you were never afraid to make that investment in your business. You know, and I think that's what separates the people that make it and don't, in my experience.
Yeah, I mean, I've wasted so much money, but like that, whatever it was, 100 to 200K, that's never coming back. It's going to come back 10x and 100x over the next 5 to 10 years, right? And like you're investing in those lessons and those failures. And just like as an entrepreneur, you have to have that mindset, or else you need to have that growth mindset instead of scarcity mindset. Like all of this stuff is part of the process, and like this is part of the fate of being an entrepreneur. And like that's what it takes, right? And that's what separates someone that becomes 8, 9, 10-figure entrepreneur and those that like fail and then go back to the workforce. Feel free to jump in, Danny.
Yeah, no, I mean, all great points, like so good. Billy,
I guess like where are you at now? Where are you at now, Billy? Yeah.
So yeah, it's been interesting. So I had sold an e-com brand in early 2019. It was like January 2019. And at that point, I was a little bit lost. I think that was an interesting thing. Whenever someone comes to me, hey, I'm about to sell my main endeavor, I'm always like, if you want to talk to me, let me know, because I've been through that. And it's weird when something is like your life for so long and suddenly just is gone, doesn't even exist anymore, right? And you kind of have to find new purpose. And I think one thing, I think this is part of a trait of successful entrepreneur is you believe you can always figure it out. But sometimes it takes longer than you think. And I think I was like, oh, I'm just going to launch another brand that's going to work. And it wasn't that easy. Things have gotten harder. Facebook ad costs have gone up, which was probably my best skill set at the time. And I kind of had to refigure everything out. I mean, I think I spent probably 2 or 3 years just learning short form content, TikTok, Instagram Reels, eventually, etc. And, I'm finally getting ready to launch another brand now, 6 years later, 5 years later, rather. And over the years, I think it's been about, 5.5 years now of just trial and error. I did a lot of like I said, agency stuff, affiliate marketing stuff, had a couple brands that failed. And over the last year, I've been really going hard at launching this new dog supplement brand. It's one of my best friend and business partners. And, we're really going all in on it. And this is like my first real shot at a brand since that sale. So that'll be interesting. I'm definitely excited about it. I think I've learned the landscape of where we're at right now, and I see a path. But, like I said, you never know. You never know. Something could change overnight. You have hypotheses, and sometimes they don't play out the way you expect. But I'm just a believer in, trusting the process and figuring it out no matter what.
Before jumping into dog supplements and TikTok Live, which I definitely want to double click on,
Yeah.
what is like agency 101 and affiliate 101? Because I think that's like, these are terms that people hear, but they don't really understand what it means. And I guess, talking to a novice, like how would you kind of explain it?
I mean, the agency is my least favorite business model of all. You see all these people online saying, oh, start an SMMA or social media marketing agency or whatever. I mean, to me, like, if I'm just going to give a Reader's Digest version of how I view an agency, let's just say like someone really smart who's had success in e-commerce, like myself maybe, starts an agency. If I work with you directly, let's say Rob comes to me, hey, I'm starting Avenir. I want you to help me, launch our ads and come up with a strategy. And I launch an agency and I work with you one-on-one. But then what happens when I start hiring? Now I have this guy, and I'm getting bigger. And now I'm focused on client acquisition. So now I'm barely even working on Avenir. And now you have an employee who maybe I'm paying $80,000 a year running your ads, coming up with strategies, and you could barely hop on a call with me. That's for me the best way to describe an agency that's successful. Because if an agency is successful, the owner, who's probably the one who was the best at it in the beginning, shouldn't really be working in the ad accounts every day and on strategy, because their job is really to bring on clients and grow the agency, because that's their business. And to me, that's why the agency model always fails, is that like you end up working and you have just employee turnover is high. People can be good. You're going to get some good employees, but in my experience working with agency, it just never works out the way you expect. You end up getting overcharged, and I hated the business model because that, like I said, it's all about client acquisition at that point. And I always like to feel like I'm building brands, and it felt like I was just building a turnover machine. Right? It's just like, oh, in and out, new clients, new employees, new people. And it wasn't fun. So that's a quick explanation of my point of view. And I'm sure some people will disagree, but
I mean, in some ways, SobDoc is an agency. Like it's growing doctor practices on an outsourced basis. So it will be interesting to see how things play out. I think like the one advantage of like, in reality, I should have just started SobDoc as my first business, but like that's not how entrepreneurship works. You go with what feels right, and you start that business, and then that tees up the success for the second business. And like even if the first one is a single or a walk, like the second or third business can be like a home run or a grand slam. But with this one, I think from the beginning, I'm kind of not even involved in the day-to-day operations. It's kind of higher level relationship management.
Did you lose him? Okay. I was making sure it wasn't me.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I mean, he got kicked off before too. I don't know what's going on. Yeah.
We'll give him
He just texted, keep going. His laptop is fucked. Well, maybe he should invest in some better technology if he is good at spending money. No, that's really interesting. So like the dog supplement brand, this is like really, because I mean that's a huge like hole in the market. Like I don't see dog supplements. It's all about like the dog food, right? So like
Yeah.
what is the how'd you essentially like land on doing that versus maybe some other consumer product?
So the story is actually kind of funny. My business partner, his sister was graduating from London School of Economics, maybe May of 2022, and she was friends with one of the Mars family members
Hmm.
who was also
Yep.
working with her. And he was talking to him, and he had mentioned, he was on the board of directors for Mars. He had mentioned to my business partner Jahan that um, Mars was now more than 51% pet brands. So it's like,
Yep.
it's like you think it's a candy company chocolate, but they were, aggressively acquiring clinics and pet supplement brands and pet food brands and all that stuff because, they had the distribution already. And he was talking about, some internal stuff. And Jahan was like, wow, like this is a huge opportunity. Like they're putting all this money into it, all this effort into it. Like this is a place we should look into. We both had dogs, love dogs. So we just started brainstorming and we found that there were quite a few pet supplement brands doing really well on Amazon and online. But that's when we came in. We're like, we don't want to copy what other people are doing. We don't want to be just another company trying to, spend money and burn through money and acquire customers and hope that we can get acquired, this, that, the other. We were like, we want to come up with something new. So we saw that athletic greens was killing it in
Hmm.
the human space. And we came up with this idea of what if we create an athletic greens for dogs? And, from doing our research, we have a vet who owns part of the company and has been a huge help for us as an advisor. We realized like roughly 1 in 1.6 dogs will get cancer at some point in their life, which is insane. We're approaching 1 in 1. Like
Wow.
it's a huge issue. And through our research, we figured out a lot of it's just from the diets changing. These
Hmm.
kibble companies cutting corners, getting acquired, taking things out, the process of how they make them being mass produced and losing nutrient value as they get cooked and switched
Sounds like
over.
human food too.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
what I've heard, the numbers are about 1 in 3 get cancer in women and 1 in 2 in men. So it's not that different. But dogs, for whatever reason, are even worse. And a lot of people are now saying, hey, you should be feeding your dog the way you feed yourself. And I think
Farmer's
that
dog and stuff
over
like
the
that.
years,
Yeah.
Yeah.
people have. So yeah, we saw these companies like Farmer's Dog and brands like that who are killing it, by the way. And we respect what they're doing. But to me, it's very expensive. And we're trying to preach to the modern American who are, tight on money, right? People care about their dogs, but can you afford to feed your 50, 60-pound dog, farmer's dog, every day? It gets very expensive. So what we decided was, we're like, what if we made an additive that you added to kibble that filled in the nutritional gaps that dogs aren't getting that they need? That's maybe $40 a month instead of paying $100 a week for these farmers dog deliveries that could break the bank for so many families. So we went into research about a year ago and we finally finished the formula. We have a powder that you just pour right into the kibble, mix it in. It tastes good, the dog eats it, and the goal is to get this into every household in America
Yeah,
and
and I think
beyond.
yeah, and like the demographic profile of the United States is one that lends itself to the pet market as well. Like people are just having fewer babies. People are spending more on their pets because they're another member of the family. And yeah, look, I think like pet supplements, pet healthcare in general is consistently a couple of years behind humans. And like if you see something flourishing within the human domain, it seems as though it's gonna work in dog supplements. And look, even if like there are other competitors, athletic greens for dogs, athletic greens for cats, that doesn't mean you can't carve out market share and do great. And I'm not seeing that many at this point. And so like, when are you guys starting, and like, what's the capital intensity, and I guess in what's the form factor? I mean, anything you're willing to share would be cool, kind of to follow your journey along the way as you're starting the business too.
Yeah, so I mean, like, from the beginning, the hardest thing, not the hardest, but the longest lead time, we actually have it, we're having it manufactured right in New Jersey through a connection of my business partner that him and his family have worked with for years. So we trust them, they're quick and they work fast. So that was kind of like, they're like giving us a lead time of a couple of weeks. The longer lead time that had pushed us back a little bit was the jars. We got these really nice jars. We wanted the packaging to be good, but we got those done overseas because obviously it's going to be expensive to do that here. But those just came in last week. So, we're getting very close to launch. We're looking at like a mid-September launch. Um, Capital intensive wise, I mean, there were a lot of like little things to getting the research and development done and getting it formulated properly. And like I said, we've been working on it for over a year now. So, I mean, I would think, we're probably all in maybe about $50,000 total. Like, it's not anything crazy. We're doing a bit of a lean launch, but the second that we see numbers, we're prepared to go all in here. I mean, this is definitely something that we're going all in on.
Yeah.
We just want to get the proper testing done and run it right. And obviously, when it comes to like the jars and doing another order, we're prepared to overpay if we see some early data to get them flown in and get them expedited, especially when we can get the powder made very quickly right here in New Jersey. So, we're kind of playing it by ear. But
so you're just going to sprinkle the powder on the dog food? Is that kind of how it's going to go?
Yeah, so we originally tested it. We were going to add it as a water additive, similar to athletic greens. And, during the first test, we pour it in, we mix it up, and the dog starts drinking it. And suddenly there's green water all over the kitchen. And we were like, oh, well, and if you have a carpet, and we're like, this stains really bad. So we found that putting it in the food is much less of a mess because it's not mixing with the water as much.
Yeah.
So that was like one, change I would say that happened that was kind of unforeseen. But I think it's better as a food additive anyway. But yeah, it's just the powder. You have a simple scooper. Serving sizes depend on the dog's weight, and you just add it to the food. It's super easy.
And are you going to, is the plan to essentially branch into other pet, like for cats, for lizards, for hamsters, right? Like technically you can, because I know there's the one thing about like the different foods is like cats need different like micronutrients than dogs need, right? So you might have to like reformulate to jump species.
Yes, we originally had the trademark Iron Dogs or Iron Dog, can't remember which it was, and we were going to just do dogs, and then we decided to switch it to Iron Paws, because we did want to leave it open to add cats at some point and potentially other animals. But like you said, it's a completely different formulation, different micronutrients, different needs. So at the moment, we don't have that formulated at all. So we're just going to start with dogs, see how it goes. But we do want to expand to cats down the road for sure, and possibly more.
It's a big enough market that like if you get it to hit with dogs, it could be an 8-figure company, right? And so like, well, I guess one of the lessons I learned from Avenir is like, don't go overly aggressive with SKUs because it's extremely capital intensive and you want to get one to hit first before you move on. But how do you think about client acquisition? Like, what do you think are going to be the best channels for you guys? Like, I know TikTok Shop seems interesting, but I think it's still a gray area for dog and pet supplements there. But Facebook, Instagram, especially going into an election where the cost per eyeball is higher, I guess like organic well, so that might be a good channel for you, like an affiliate. So I'm just curious to hear how you're thinking about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give away all my secrets.
Oh yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah.
I definitely have a very drawn out strategy, like pretty much, day by day, hour by hour. I mean, to keep it broad, I mean, organic is going to be the key.
Sure.
We have identified our target market as being like middle-aged women as being our main demographic. We do plan on bringing on a ton of content creators, and we also do plan on doing a lot of affiliate. So we're looking for people who have dogs, are willing to create content with their dog. And we're going to have, a whole process where you can be onboarded and learn how to create content, grow an account, and promote our product and get a commission, promoting our product on Instagram, TikTok, etc., which I do think is going to be really big. And then there's a lot of other smaller areas. Obviously, we are going to be running paid. It is competitive in the space, like you said. Costs are going to be high going into an election, but we always want to mix in at least some. But we have some other plans. We want to hit Facebook groups. Email is going to be a very big one for us. And then there's a lot of influencers. I mean, you can look around Instagram, type in the word dog and see how many come up. We already have a few partnerships planned out with established creators. And I really do think though, and TikTok Shop, we are looking to figure that out and see what we can do there. But regardless, we talked about live a second ago. You had mentioned going live with a dog and showing the product and showing a demo.
You're a little dog too. You got Denver.
I can't stress enough to people. And I don't think other people maybe wrap their head around it as much. This is how I describe a TikTok live to you. If you were to hop on a call right now, like a sales call, and I was trying to sell you something, it's me and you right now talking and you're listening and I have your rapt attention, right? I don't think people realize that if you are doing a live demo of a product and you get someone's attention, let's say you have a dog and you see me feeding my dog and have a good hook on the screen, this superfood is saving dogs' lives. You're gonna get attracted to that. You're gonna watch. You're gonna tune in. If you have 1,000 people watching your TikTok live, it's similar to being on a Zoom sales call with 1,000 people. I don't think people realize. Like, I've been on live before pushing a product and driven $1,500 in sales in a half hour. Like that's real. And people don't realize that you literally have the attention of all these people live on your screen. And I know in China, live selling is huge.
It's massive.
TikTok is really trying to push in America, and I think it's going to happen. I mean, if you scroll through your TikTok feed today and get the chance and just scroll through the For You page, you're going to notice that you're seeing more live streams coming up than ever before. They're actively pushing it, and people like it. People like the lives because it's interactive. You're really watching something in real time, and it's engaging. And I think that, like I said, it proved in China to be huge. And I don't really see why it wouldn't. I don't think it'll ever be as big as it is in China here, but I don't see why it wouldn't. We had QVC, we had HSN. Those channels were huge. It's the same idea. I see no reason why we don't scale that. What's the word? Channel.
And boots on the ground here in LA, like I see a lot of the girls I know that are also influencers that are getting hired by brands that do TikTok live. So like it's definitely gaining some market share, and like they keep getting hired. So that's indicative of the brands that are making money, good return on that investment. And no, I completely agree, right? Like it's massive in China. What was that one stat you cited in terms of like the record? It was some obscene amount of money that one guy drove.
All right, so I want to make sure I get it right because I know like the number is so ridiculous that like you won't believe it. Single live stream revenue record.
I mean, I've seen that like Chinese woman, she's some like big influencer too. She'll just like live stream and just like get past items, hold them up and throw them. And like, it's insane the amount of sales she drives too.
So yeah, so that's one thing. So I see right here, live streamer makes over $14 million in 1 week, showing items for just 3 seconds each. She literally takes a product, does a quick demo, goes to the next, and like it's super engaging. And nowadays everybody has goldfish attention span, so those ones are perfect. But listen to this. So this was there's something called Alibaba's Singles Day, which is like Black Friday on steroids.
It's like Amazon Prime Day, right? Yeah.
Yes, it's more like Amazon Prime Day, but it's like that's their biggest shopping day over in China. And one live streamer, his name is Lipstick Brother. He sold $2 billion of revenue. That's USD. $2 billion of revenue in 1 day. And now insane. I don't want to like say that that's like normal. That was on. They were pushing him. Like they were heavily pushing him. They made a big scene about it. They were going for the record. I think he did a 24-hour stream, and it was like a special holiday. But the fact that they were able to do $2 billion of revenue in 1 day, I mean, regardless of how much it was pushed and how much hype there was around it.
Not 2 billion renminbi, $2 million US dollars.
$2 billion US
dollars.
Wow,
in 1
that's
day.
incredible. Oh my
Obviously,
God.
what is there in China? Like 1.7 billion people. They're like 6 times bigger than the American market. But even if you did 1/6 of that, you did 300 million in a day. I mean that would be absurd too in America, right? It's insane. And I know their like live streaming is one. They have their own platform. Like imagine instead of having like TikTok live in the TikTok app, you logged into an app just to watch live stream selling. Like
Right.
people do that.
Yeah, like you said, people watch QVC all day long. Like that's it. The original, right?
And I was just talking to someone the other day. It was one of my dad's friends, probably in his early 60s. He was telling me like about some of the launches. He works in the shoe industry. He was talking about some of the launches that they've done over the years on QVC and HSN and those type of shows. And he was like, they do like exclusive launch only shoes. Like this is an exclusive shoe you can't buy in stores, you can't buy on a website. And they sell out like 300K worth in like 15 minutes. Like live selling has always been about hype and promotion and like turning it into like something bigger and unique. And I think it goes with all the psychological principles of marketing and sales, right? Because you add in the scarcity factor, you add in the live factor. People don't want to miss out, and you do feel the connection. Like when I watch an ad that was filmed 2 weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago, it's like whatever. But when I'm watching someone live showing me a demo of a product, it feels more real. Like you feel that connection to the person selling it. It's kind of cool. I actually do like it a lot.
So on another note, you're in Miami. What's it like being an entrepreneur in Miami? Do you like it? How do you stay focused, man? Because Danny says I'm a little distracted here in LA. I can't imagine what it's like in Miami.
So it's funny you say that. So when I moved to LA, I was very distracted. And I think Miami could easily become worse. But I think I learned my lessons, back in those days. And I think I have a pretty good system. I mean, I do, I think I had opportunities where maybe I could have lived closer to some people that I'm good friends with, and I kind of kept myself a little bit away. I'm always a believer. I think that this is always my like favorite example. But like, you know, if you have your laundry machine like in your bedroom, right, you're more likely to do laundry. But if it's upstairs, you're less likely to do it. You might wait till tomorrow, etc. Anytime you set any type of gap between what you want to do and where you are right now, it becomes harder to do it.
Out of sight, out of mind. Yeah.
That could be a good thing too, right? So I think I've set up my life in a way where like, if I want to go out, it requires some effort. And once I'm out, like I know that it's going to be tough to stop. But I think I've been able to set up these roadblocks where like going out isn't.
Yeah, it's kind of tough for me because it's like, yeah, it's so easy for me to justify going out because every time I go out, I meet a doctor or I meet someone that knows a ton of doctors. And so like in a B2B context, it's like the intersection of networking and partying. But I think I need to find my equilibrium. Like I met Danny by going to the gym, every day at like 5:30. And I can't remember the last time I've gone to the gym at 5:30 a.m. And I could feel his judgment right now, just even right now.
Well, that's a good thing. That's what we call positive peer
it is. It's a good forcing function. But yeah, no, I'll get back into it. Like I'm still finding my rhythm a little bit, but it's been a fun ride recently, man. And
you gotta enjoy it.
Yeah.
And like you said, like there is positives to it. I think there becomes a line, right? And you just have what's most important right now. If right now going out and meeting people is most important, then you got to focus on that. And then, but when it hits that point of, diminishing returns where it's like, okay, you have enough clients and the business itself maybe needs more nurturing and you're still going out and justifying it, well, then now we have a problem, right? And I think, you just have to, I think the most important thing, because I think we always, as entrepreneurs, we always feel like we know what's best. A lot of us have our own egos and our own because in order to get here and do what we do, you have to believe in yourself. You have to think you're the best in some aspect. And a lot of times you catch yourself like not really being checked. Like, I know there's a story, and I think it's Peter Thiel's 0 to 1, where he talks about like the CEO, I think of GE, and how like he built a circle of yes men around him. And he would come up with a terrible idea and people would know, I'm going to get fired if I disagree with this. So let's just agree. And the next thing you know, GE stock tanked. And I think that's when they brought in
Jack Welch.
Yeah. And, they brought in the other guy to save the company because it got ruined by someone who, couldn't take no for an answer. Like he just wanted yes men around him. And, I think that's what's most important is having someone or even preferably multiple people in your circle who, if you are crossing that line of like going a little too hard, like, hey, how you doing, brother? Like, seems like you're going out a lot. Is everything good? Like, or whatever it may be, who know you, they know what you want, they know what your goals are, and they're not afraid to like tell you that maybe you're overstepping because I think in the moment you can justify anything, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the story of like any king or monarch throughout history that had a big downfall. It's like they just had a bunch of yes men around them, right? And that led to their downfall because they didn't have honest insight and they completely imploded. And I think like what you said, like the economic concepts of diminishing marginal returns and opportunity costs are definitely in my mind. And like you reach a point where like you've infiltrated the network so much that like you're starting to see the same people and over again. But then at the same time in LA, there's always like another circle to infiltrate, right? Like, and there's always another person to meet. So yeah, I'm still kind of establishing that, but I was curious to hear your thoughts on how you kind of developed your focus in Miami.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, I think I've had periods and this is what I think is hard to admit and, really work with, but there's in Miami, it's very like seasonal, whereas, there's Music Week in the end of March, there's Basel in the beginning of December. And what I've noticed personally is like, I'll tell myself, okay, it's Basel this week. I'm going to go out. I'm going to have a lot of fun. And, I go and I do that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing. And then I'm like, all right, I'm going to get back to work. And then there's like a little spillover where it's like, once you said yes to all that, it becomes harder to say no and get back into your shell, so to speak. And I find that the rest of December, like, is a little bit worse than it probably should be. And same thing with Music Week in March. But then I have months where I'm like committed to saying no and I don't go out at all. And then those are great. And I think that's the one thing I've struggled with, just finding that balance of being like, not all in or all out. Like I want to be like, I can go out this week, but I also could not, and it's not going to make a difference. Whereas I think sometimes that could be easier said than done.
Yeah, I think that's where I struggle a little bit because I'm like very all in and very all out, like very black and white. And yeah, man, it just you kind of just have to find the right equilibrium that makes the most sense for you. Like even like alcohol, like I haven't had a drop in 10 months. I'm never gonna drink a drop again. And like I definitely have gone through periods where I've had unhealthy relationships with it. And I tried for like a year or two to do like the 3 to 5 drink thing, but then I'm 3 tequila shots in, and next thing you know, it's 12. Like two hours later. And so I was just like, I need to just go cold turkey. And it took a little while to decouple like having fun from consumption of alcohol. And I think I just like really kind of dove into the fundamental reasons why I was doing it. Like, am I doing this because like I like myself more and I'm more confident when I'm drunk? Like, why am I doing this? Right? Like I'm poisoning my body and I'm feeling terrible the next day. And it's like leading me to like I guess delay the actual achievement of my goals. And, finally got to that point. And like, obviously don't judge people that are still consuming, but like, you gotta have to find what works for you,
Yeah. Yeah, but there's your all in again. You're like, I'm never gonna have another drop again.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have to commit to it. I have to tell people, so I kind of hold myself accountable. With what time we have left, I mean, I always love asking the question, like, where do you want to be, over the next 3 to 5 years? Like, what's your 2030 plan? Like, in an ideal world, like, what do you want that to look like?
Well, that's first of all, the fact that you just said 2030 is practically in 5 years, just kind of made me think for a second. That's insane.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes, I mean, so for this new Iron Paws brand that we're launching, we have a very drawn out 5-year plan. And of course, odds are it's going to change so much that it'll look unrecognizable in 2 years, maybe 100%. Even in 1. But, I think, the goal is to be at a point where we could sell the company in 5 years, hopefully have expanded to retail, saturate the entire American market, taken over Europe and Asia and every other market we could possibly take over. And, sell the company to someone who can really take it to the next level, beyond what we are even possibly capable of. And at that point, be at a point in my career where I can do whatever I want next and have no money constraints whatsoever. I mean, I think that for me, anything less would be considered a failure. And, I've always been someone who, when I talk about my goals, most people around will be like, you can't go that big. You got to take it step by step. And I don't really believe in that. I don't think I ever will. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know there's going to be step-by-step processes as part of it, but I'm a big believer, like you get what you optimize for. I see a lot of people optimizing for clicks on Facebook, and they're like, I'm trying to get the lowest click possible. And I've always been one, I'm optimizing for sales. You focus on your clicks and you do what you got to do, but I'm going later in the funnel. I'm looking at the end, and I'm going to get what I need to get in those earlier stages. But, I have a long-term goal, and I'm never going to waver from it. I'm never going to take my eyes off it. And that's always going to be the goal. It's like, what was that guy's name? I think it was like Think and Grow Rich, or one of those guys.
Napoleon Hill, yeah.
Right? Yeah, I think he said, he's like, people say, oh, I want to make a lot of money. He goes, that's not a goal. He's like, say how much you want to make. You want to make $1 million, $5 million, $10 million? Because once you say, hey, I want to make 100 million, and you're making like $1 million a year, it's like, well, you're not going to get there. You're making good money if you're making $1 million a year, but you're not going to get to 100 million unless you're like really investing into like amazing things. If you made $1 million a year for 50 years, and you're paying taxes and your lifestyle creep and all that stuff, you're probably never gonna get to 100 million in reality. And I think when you set that goal at, let's just say 50 million, 100 million, a billionaire, you have to make adjustments to actually give yourself a shot to get there. And that's just the way I look at life, And I think, do I have a number in my head of what I'd want to sell Iron Paws for? Yes. Do I think it's possible? Yes. I don't know if I'm ready to say it here, but I
gotta define it and quantify it. Like I'm definitely in that camp too. And like, I think that in the past has led me to some degree of unhappiness when that doesn't pan out, right? Where it's like, not only am I defining and quantifying it, but I'm tying it to a specific age and a date. And like, that's definitely much in the camp of Napoleon Hill. Like by the time I'm 30, I'm going to be worth X, Y, and Z. But I'm definitely like more in the Hormozy camp where it's like, it's fine to define that. But like, if it happens when you're 35 instead of 33, like be kind to yourself. Like you still got to that point. And so like, that's kind of focusing on the inputs rather than the outputs and, still having that broad vision, that dream, because if you don't define it, then I think the probability of it happening is 0%. Right. And so like, you got to say, you got to speak it into existence. If you want to tell people, that's fine, And so like, I think, that balancing act is something that I've worked on, and, I'm in a decently good place on that front too.
To your point though, who you tell matters so much. I know it's a little cliche. Like, if you tell it to people who have no idea how it's possible, like I know I have certain friends I'll tell a 5-year plan to, and they'll be like, "You're aiming low, bro."
Dude, yes, I love
you know what I mean?
Yep.
And then you have other friends who are like, "Dude, you're being ridiculous," And in their world, like they've never met someone making that kind of money. They can't even fathom it, right? And in their life, it would be impossible, right? But like it's true. Like when you talk to someone who's running a company doing 500 million a year revenue, they're like, "Oh, you want to sell your company for 500 million?" Like, "Oh yeah, I mean that's decent, I guess." So we do that every year.
I just sold 10% of mine for 500 million. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like imagine if you're Elon Musk, imagine if you're Jeff Bezos, imagine if you're Steve Jobs back in the day. These companies are worth trillions of dollars. They're like, "Oh, 500 million, that's cute." That's like a little small side business. But it's true. Like at the end of the day, where you look, who you talk to, who you're around, it completely changes your perspective on what is a big number. And I think that's the most important thing, which is if you're gonna go if your goal is to go play games at that level, you better be talking to people who are doing that, because if you're not, then I think it's next to impossible.
No chance. No chance. Yeah.
And that's like Gary Vee too. It's like if you're building anything in public, whether it's, Iron Paws or Sovereign Entrepreneur, Sovdoc Avenue, you have to like not give a fuck what people think, or else you're just going to self-destruct and you're going to get so self-conscious. So that's one thing. And yeah, man, like I completely resonate with that philosophy.
Yeah. And it's like, you want people to not get it. Then you're saying a goal that's crazy enough. Like that's every entrepreneur says that, right? Like I want everybody to laugh at me every time I tell them what I'm about to go do. Right. And again, it's one of those things like you aim for the stars, you land on the moon. Like if you say I'm going to sell my company for 500 million at 35 and you sell it for 350, like, okay. Right. Like, oh, wow. Is that a failure? Like, no, right. You just didn't hit that level. But the only way to get to that point is to set the goal, reverse engineer it, and day in and day out, just grind on all that action to get you to that point. Right. So that's super cool. You're super inspiring. I've loved having this conversation. Like from my end, what I always like to know from entrepreneurs is kind of like your day-to-day, like what does your day-to-day look like? Like what's the routine? Do you have a routine? What's the discipline look like? Schedule? Rob, his big thing is like, I'm free to kind of do what I want, right? So I kind of go here and go there. Other people a lot more discipline. That's my life, right? That's what I need. I need that like daily structure. So what's yours look like?
That's an interesting one. So, depending on what month you catch me, what year you catch me, this answer can vary so much, which probably tells you a lot about my temperament. I would say that it's very strange. I think Rob probably can relate to this a bit, but I haven't met many people who are in my boat. I go through like periods where I'm the most type A scheduled person ever for like 6-7 months at a time. And then another 6-7 months where like I'm the opposite. And, I think that like the way I've experienced business and life is, moments come and go. I think Naval Ravikant talks about it a little bit, how like, when you're hunting, if you're like a lion or whatever animal he used, you don't just, hunt every day. You don't go out and do the same thing every day, because you plan for months or hours or days, whatever it may be. And then when the time is right, you strike. And I think that's how I operate. I'm always trying to keep a consistent fitness routine, eating routine, all that stuff. And of course, sometimes it's going to slip. But like when it comes to business, like, I have certain months where I'm in front of the laptop, taking calls, doing this, doing that, really locked in. And then I have other months where I'm barely at my desk, where it just feels like right now, this is a networking phase. And those moments, without a doubt, looking back, is like, oh wow, I met that person, and without him, I never would have made it here, right? And I never regret those phases. So I think it's just about, I think in today's world, like the one thing I will say is, if you're still in that suit and tie at the office every day, 9 a.m. till whatever time mindset, like, and you, if you like that, of course, like my dad is like that, and he still does it, all respect to him. But like, I don't think that that's the way the world works anymore. And if that's what you like to do, I think it's great, but you don't have to. And I think for me, I like variety. I like to switch it up. I move a lot. I've lived in LA, I've lived in New York, I've lived in Miami. I don't really, I want to experience the world, I want to experience things. And I try to build my businesses in a way where I'm always growing and adjusting. So, to answer your question, I don't even know if I did answer it, but I would say in each period of my life, I have a routine that fits for that period. But
Yep.
like, we don't have one, that I've been following for years.
Yeah.
I've had where I do the ice bath in the morning, and then I'm like, is this really doing anything for me? No, I mean, I think for me, it's just more about core pillars. So like, get to the gym 3 to 5 days a week. Make sure I'm getting outside and like walking every day. I don't like to be too sedentary or however you pronounce it. And as long as I think I have some mental checklists before I go to sleep every night. Like, did I sit around way too much today? Did I eat enough calories? Did I get to the gym? Did I want to? Stuff like that. As long as I feel at the end of each day that like I'm close to what I want it to be, I'm happy. Because I also think if you're too anal about it, you see people get into these toxic patterns, right? Where like, I need to hit this amount of calories, I need to do this, I need to do this. And then when they slip a little bit, they lose it.
Well, you also get lost in the forest and you miss opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Because like I'm like that, and it's kind of funny because like Rob often is, I'm networking stage of life, right? I'm networking stage of life, right? Which is awesome. And again, I've been in recovery for over 8.5 years. I had my fun, right? Like I'm sober today. Like I did what Rob's doing now 10 years ago, right? Like that was my time doing it. And it was a ton of fun until it became unmanageable, right? And it took over essentially, right?
Yeah.
So it's funny because like Rob's over here and I'm like totally over here on the other end too. And it's like, I like what you said because you essentially are just adapting to the cyclicality of life, right? Is like, well, right now I need to go out and schmooze and meet people because that's how I'm going to generate clients for my business and make money and grow the business. Then at this point in time, I need to be tied to my desk for 16 hours a day for 3 months straight in order to then nurture the business to get it to the next point. And then at that point, guess what? I'm out schmoozing again, trying to find money to go do that, right? Whatever it is. And I find myself on the other side of the spectrum of it's like I'm too good at saying no. Like I've gotten too good at saying no to where it's just like, nope, doesn't align with the routine, the schedule. Nope, doesn't do this. Nope, nope, nope. Where I am losing out on opportunity because I'm so ingrained. Like what you said is like, oh my gosh, did I hit the macros today? Did I work out? Oh, I got to do this type of workout. I got to go do cardio. I got to follow this program. Like I'm too OCD on the other, too regimented, right? So it's finding that point in the middle that I think is really important, which is essentially what you said of, hey, the happy medium is where I can flourish because when I'm too tight over here, I'm so wound up and I'll snap, right? But then the other side is when I'm too loose, like my life is like in tatters, right? I'm like all over the place, nothing's working. I'm like, wait, where'd all my money go? Like what's going on? So I think the way you explained it, which I necessarily don't hear a lot when I talk to entrepreneurs or listen to the podcast, right? Is like it's so like regimented, and that's what like almost this entrepreneurship culture is like marketing it should be, right? Is like you should be this, you should do the cold plunge, you should do this routine, you need to have a 17-hour morning routine before you even start work. And it's like, how then? Well, the day's gone, how am I supposed to do any work? But it's like that's what they're like marketing, where in reality it's almost like no one really sees behind the glass, right? Until you show it. And it's like in reality, like, well, one day I'm off having lunch. Like Rob went and had a lunch today. Great. Okay. Tomorrow I'll be at my desk for 12 hours. The next day I might do this, right? And that's more of like what that reality is, and kind of finding that happy medium where I'm trying to get back to it on the other way, right? Like I'm too regimented right now because I've let myself get there. And now I'm trying to like come back a little bit. And like you said, like, because I woke up and I'm like, I'm not like living my life either. I'm like I'm saying no to going out to dinner. I'm saying no to going out to the bars to meet people because I got to wake up at the crack of dawn tomorrow and go work out first thing and then get to my office and do this, right? So it's like yeah, if you're too far one way, you might be out of control and you're losing out on an opportunity. You're not taking advantage of something. You're not disciplined enough. But on the other end, I'm like, what am I doing all of this for? Like, I'm not even enjoying my life anymore because it's too much the other way.
Yeah, and I'll leave you on this. This will be my last phrase on what you just said. But I think if you know what your why is and what your goal is, I'm a believer that everything falls into place. You know, if I know what I need to get done and I have a burning desire to get it done, I'm gonna find a way. So if I say yes to that lunch and I gotta stay up another hour tonight, so be it. But like I know what I have to get done and I want to get it done. I think a lot of times where people fail is they're like, you know, I want, they don't know if they want to go to the gym, if they want to go to the cold plunge, if they want to do this project, and they feel like, you know, they feel like they're being boxed in, so to speak. And then when their schedule falls off, like they're disoriented. When my schedule falls out of place, I go, I have something I need to get done. And in the back of my mind, even if I go off track for a second, the second I get back to my desk, I'm back on it. And it's going to get done eventually. And that's how I feel about it. But to be fair, I've had phases where I was doing stuff I didn't like and it doesn't flow like that at all. And I think that's the key, hitting that flow state and knowing your why and knowing that you're on the right course.
Cool, man.
Awesome.
I know you got to run, Billy, but really appreciate this, man. And looking forward to having the follow-up conversation when Iron Paws is officially launched. We hear about the early successes, but yeah, as always, it's great chatting with you, man. We'll be in touch.
Great talking to you guys. Talk soon.
Thanks, Billy.
All right, guys.